Thanks for clicking. First-time homebuyers are just biding their time before jumping into the real estate market. This according to a new report coming from LePage. Yeah, in this highly publicized report showing that first-time homebuyers are just waiting for the perfect time to flood in the market, was coupled with a Bloomberg interview with Nostradamus himself. LePage CEO Phil Soper here to tell us that as of right now, people are worried about the tariffs, so they're not buying.
It's more the uncertainty around their future. They just don't know how this is all going to manifest itself in terms of their jobs, and that's what the uncertainty is.
But that is going to come as a big surprise to both Bloomberg and to Phil Soper, who just 2 weeks ago was singing a very different tune.
And it's people just felt so uncomfortable with the news cycle. You know, things coming out of Washington were so negative week after week after week, and I think they're finally tuning the Trump administration out as far as their own personal lives and what they need in terms of housing.
Journalism.
And I don't know what that is.
So what I want to do today is read over the poll released by LePage, someone should, comparing it with previous polls, take a look at what Phil Soper had to say on Bloomberg, and then go over some implications. We do have the first of the month coming up, and with that we are eagerly awaiting the release of September's real estate data coming out from the local boards, and we'll obviously have an update out on that data on this channel. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this poll. Onto the poll conducted by LePage, which found that 13% of Canadians are hoping to buy within the next 2 years. But that doesn't really tell us anything. What we want to know, has there been any shifts in first-time buyer behavior? Any shifts in first-time buying intentions? Thankfully, the statistician himself, Phil Soper, took to Bloomberg to explain it all to us.
It's a bump. And if you look at those people that say they're going to move into their first owned home in the next 2 years, it's a substantial bump.
So there's been a bump. Let's double check that just to be sure. Thankfully, we do have a poll that came out from LePage about a year ago, back in August of 2024, which found that 3% of first-time homebuyers plan on buying in the next 12 months. Compare that to the 2% that plan on buying in the next 12 months as of right now.
It's a substantial bump.
Now, the survey from a year ago also asked how many planned on buying over the next 36 months, coming in at 15%, while today's poll conveniently only asked about the next 24 months in total, coming in at 11%. But if there was a bump from that 15% that was polled a year ago, then shouldn't we be seeing higher numbers in the 1 and 2 year month out voting intentions?
Try research.
Regardless, that's the past. Let's talk about Phil Soper. I want to revisit that clip from September 15th. 1, to provide context, and 2, just to demonstrate who the media works for.
It's simply been the overhang of the tariffs and uncertainty. You think that has held people back so much?
Yeah, we've done research on exactly that. People have they're feeling more comfortable about their jobs, and the unemployment rate, although it's moved a tiny little bit, it was mostly in part-time work, not full-time work. And the default rate of mortgages has remained probably the best in the world. 21/100% of people not meeting their commitment to the bank. It's something like 7 times lower in the U.S. So you can go through the various savings, double normal. The one thing that was high on the warning list was the consumer confidence. People just felt so uncomfortable with the news cycle. You know, things coming out of Washington were so negative week after week after week, and I think they're finally tuning the Trump administration out.
So LePage says that they had done the research, unemployment was okay, defaults were nothing to worry about, and people were tuning out the Trump administration. That interview telling us things were heating up was conducted on September 15th. We knew on September 5th that unemployment had just jumped to 7.1%, up 0.2. We also knew that defaults were rising as of July 26th. And finally, zero evidence was presented during that interview as to people's intentions vis-a-vis the Trump administration, as to their feelings about the uncertainty moving forward. So, given those disconnects between the unemployment rate and the default rate, as cited by Phil Soper, Bloomberg has them back.
Their future, they just don't know how this is all going to manifest itself in terms of their jobs, and that's what the uncertainty is.
You think? And it's not even just a matter as to the extent to which people are worried about the economy. The question that needs to be asked, considered by anyone claiming to provide expert advice, is should they be? Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem is out there telling people that we could in fact see a recession, that the upcoming economy is not going to feel good. And then you've got Bloomberg having the crystal ball himself on their network, yet again, despite all of the previous problems with his forecast, telling people that in the next year or two, first-time homebuyers could be flooding in. And doesn't cross-check any of the statements being made. Doesn't cross-check any of the statements being made 2 weeks prior on its own network.
You need to get out ahead of us.
And remember, this isn't the first time that Bloomberg has done this. Recall a December 2024 interview between Phil Soper and Andrew Bell, where Soper claimed that the renewal wave was nearly 3/4 over.
They are facing higher borrowing costs. What effect will that have on the housing market when they have to, as they renew at a much higher interest rate?
Yeah, much less than some would lead you to believe. We're over halfway, considerably over halfway. We'll be 3/4 of mortgages written during those pandemic lows will have rolled into post-pandemic rates by the end of 24.
That claim was ridiculous on its face and wasn't even questioned by Andrew Bell whatsoever.
Not expecting that to be a significant factor on the market in the year ahead.
What would you say to people who criticize the government's move?
Even though it's been shown to be nonsense from numerous sources since that point. And finally, I suppose it's worth noting, as we've talked about it before ad nauseum on this channel, these polls are problematic to say the least, as they really only understand the intentions of those people who take paid online surveys. I suspect that's why that poll that was commissioned again by Royal LePage that showed that half of sideline homebuyers would be jumping into the market when the bank cut rates, I suspect that's why none of that ended up materializing, as we've seen multiple rate cuts since that poll, and the market has not taken off. Yaha! So, Phil Soper, once again in September on Bloomberg, making grand claims that have a big disconnect between those claims and reality, and then going on Bloomberg 2 weeks later to contradict himself. Bloomberg doesn't check him on his statements, instead just going with it, and then those statements trickle out throughout the media, painting the picture of a real estate market about to take off the minute all of these first-time homebuyers flood in. And putting all this together, putting all of these contradictions together, this lack of ability to read a poll, interpret a poll, or question those who made the poll, I just want to stress again that don't listen to the experts that you see on these mainstream news networks. The experts aren't questioned, the experts aren't cross-checked, they're allowed to push their narrative. As such, the guiding principle you should look to when deciding whether or not to buy your home is if it's the right time for you. Does it fit the budget? Are the payments affordable? Given the Trump administration, are you at risk of losing your job? If all of those seem okay, then consider buying. If they don't, then don't. We will start to get a better idea of how the real estate market is faring in the fall market when we get September's data in a couple of days, and we'll obviously have an update out on that data on this channel. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, thanks so much for watching.